Thank you for tuning in to Dreamed It, Then Real Lifed It. I hope today's episode sparked something powerful within you. Remember, every step you take towards your vision counts, no matter how small. If you enjoyed today's conversation, please take a second to hit that subscribe button or leave a review. That would be amazing. Or share the podcast with someone who's ready to bring their dreams into reality too. And if you're looking to dive deeper, connect with me on social media at Dreamed It, Then Real Lifed It, or at BE_what you want. Or visit dreameditThenRealLifedIt.us for more resources on aligning your life, business, and dreams. Until next time, keep dreaming and keep manifesting your dreams into real life. Love you, friends. Welcome to Dreamed It, Then Real Lifed It, the podcast where we dive deep into the journey from vision to reality. I'm Kelly Jackson, your guide on this path of self-discovery, transformation, and intentional living. Here, we explore everything from mindset shifts and personal growth to spiritual alignment and entrepreneurship, sharing insights, stories, and actionable wisdom to help you live a life in harmony with your dreams. Every episode will dig into what it means to not only dream big, but to actually consciously create the life you envision. Let's turn your dreams into real life. Welcome back, beautiful souls, to Dreamed It, Then Real Lifed It. This episode is one that I've wanted to create for a while. It's not tied to any holiday or season or anything, but it's one that you can come back to anytime you need a deep breath or a moment of truth or a little recalibration. And it's a message that I find myself whispering often to clients, friends, and especially to myself. What if it gets to be easy? What if it gets to be easy? In a world that constantly sells us hustle and pressure as the price of success, joy, and even healing, I want to offer a different perspective. One that's rooted in trust and flow and nervous system safety and alignment. And this conversation is about reclaiming ease, not as laziness or bypassing, but as a radical act of self-respect and clarity. So let's explore what it means to move with intention and honor your capacity and create from overflow instead of depletion. Let's talk about ease not as a shortcut, but as a frequency. And a frequency that allows you to create and live with more spaciousness and grace and joy. This one's going to be good, guys. So we're going to start with the lie. Yep, I said it. The lie. The lie of hard equals worthy. So let's start by getting honest about the deep conditioning that we have all internalized. This belief that struggle equals value. That if it didn't hurt or require sacrifice, that it's somehow less legitimate. And this is a collective wound, guys, especially in modern Western culture, of which I am a part. And especially among those of us building lives and businesses with purpose. But what if that belief is not only outdated, but it's actually keeping you stuck? We don't earn our worth through exhaustion. We have been taught to glorify burnout, as if the most tired person in the room is the most successful. If I've said it once, I've said it 100 times. I used to wear busy like a badge of honor. But worthiness is not transactional. You are not more valid because you pushed past your limits. That is not sustainability. That is survival mode. And it's time to graduate out of that paradigm. When you are in survival mode, your nervous system is also in survival mode, which means that your sympathetic nervous system is activated. That's fight or flight. That is, we're designed for that to kick in when it's needed. We are not designed to live in a constant state of fight or flight, where we are constantly pumping cortisol and everything, all of these other stress hormones into our bodies. That is survival mode, guys. And again, it's time to graduate out of that paradigm. This ease isn't laziness. I'm going to bust that myth. Ease isn't laziness. It is efficiency that is guided by wisdom. Have you ever thought of it that way? That ease is efficiency guided by wisdom. And when you create from a regulated nervous system, you make clearer decisions. And you tap into your creativity and your intuition, your actual power. You are not, this doesn't mean that everything is effortless. Okay? It just means that you aren't wasting energy pushing what's not meant to be pushed. And there is a difference between giving your all and giving yourself away. You know, hard doesn't mean aligned. We confuse hard with holy sometimes. And just because something is difficult, it doesn't mean it's the right path. And in fact, many of the most aligned decisions that I've made have felt simple. Maybe even a little scary because of that simplicity. But that is what alignment often sounds like. Quiet, grounded, undeniable. There is strength in softness, and we have mistaken ease for weakness. But in truth, it takes enormous strength to pause and to rest and to re-choose. I go to a restorative yoga class at my yoga studio where I go to yoga. When I say my studio, I do not own the yoga studio. I'm a practitioner, and this is where I choose to go. And there is, and it's Leela is where I choose to go, Leela Yoga Lifestyle, and it's in Baton Rouge and on historic Highland Road. It's beautiful. It used to be a bridal boutique there. I think it was actually a bartending school too. Someone reminded me of that. And that might have actually been back when I was a bartender. That they're right. That was like a bartending school. And then a bridal boutique where you could buy a wedding gown. And now it's a yoga studio. So what a life that little business has had. That little building. It looks like it was maybe built in like the 1970s or something. It's kind of fun and funky. And I really love it there. And I love the community there. And they have a restorative class there. Allie, the owner, teaches this class. And one of the things that she says, and it's a restorative class, meaning we're doing restorative postures with props the entire class, which is maybe an hour. There are only, I would say, about 5 postures that we do. So these are, you're holding these restorative postures for extended periods of time. And one of the things that she says at the beginning of every class is that restorative is an advanced practice. Restorative yoga is an advanced practice. And that's kind of going back to what I had just said, that, it takes enormous strength to pause, to rest, and to re-choose. And that's what the restorative practice is about, is pausing. And not everybody wants to pause. And strength is the person who can push through but chooses not to. And softness doesn't mean you're giving up. It means you're giving yourself room to thrive. So there's strength in softness. And you can also remember that letting it be easy is an act of trust. Like trust in yourself. Trust in your timing. Trust that you're not behind. When you let it be easy, you're saying, I trust that my presence, my pace, and my path are enough. And that trust changes everything. So let's let go of the myth that struggle is the only road to success or transformation. You do not have to suffer to be worthy. And you don't have to be exhausted to prove your devotion. And your joy and your peace and your softness, they are allowed. Guys, let that sink in. Now, let's talk about flow over force, what it really means. When I say flow over force, I am not talking about floating through life doing nothing. I'm talking about working with your natural energy, not against it. Downstream, not upstream. The goal is to be going downstream, not upstream, right? I am talking about rhythm, intuition, aligned effort. And the beauty of co-creating with life rather than trying to control it all. And I'm giggling because I know some of y'all out there trying to control it all. And you want to know how I know? Because that was me. Now, quit trying to control it all and get into this whole mindset of I am co-creating with life. And guys, I guarantee it's going to feel a whole lot better. Now, flow is not passivity. It is power without panic. Okay? The without panic part is important. Panic implies that you're not trusting. And this really is about trusting. Okay? So force drains you and flow feeds you. And when you're in flow, there is still effort. I want to make sure you hear this. When you are in flow, there is still effort, but it's energized. Things click. You feel pulled, not pushed. You feel drawn, not shoved. And you get results without the chronic depletion. That is your cue that you're working with life and not battling it. Flow invites you to move at the speed of wisdom, and you're not meant to match the pace of the algorithm or your peers or someone else's success story. Flow asks you to slow down enough to actually hear your inner yes and your inner no. And the more you honor your natural pace, the more potent your output becomes. And your rhythm is your superpower. And when you are tapped and tuned into that intuitive, when your inner voice, you can really get into that rhythm and use that superpower. Your body knows, guys, when you're forcing. You got a tight chest. You have shallow breath. And there's resistance there. And we've normalized ignoring these signals. I really believe that just in general, we've normalized ignoring these signals, but they are sacred. And the reason I can say this, or the reason I am saying this, again, it's because I have something to compare it to, because I've lived two very different lifestyles, and one that is very intuitively driven, and one that was very disconnected, or so I could say that, one that's very connected to my intuition and one that was very disconnected. And the tight chest, the shallow breath, the resistance, 100%, I normalized ignoring those. I was so disconnected from my body that these signs that now I'm very tuned into and would immediately notice, I was just ignored them. I wasn't listening to my body. And when your body is telling you that something feels off, believe it. Because alignment isn't just a mindset, it's a somatic experience. And the more you understand this, the more you will feel the flow in your life. And flow doesn't mean perfect conditions. It means presence. You don't need everything to be ideal to find your flow. Sometimes it is simply about releasing resistance and meeting the moment fully. You can create flow even in chaos by grounding, pausing, and recalibrating. Presence opens the portal. Okay, let's go back to ease, because ease doesn't make it less meaningful. Sometimes we diminish things that feel too good, right? Right? Like as if they don't count unless we sweat and cry for them. I was like, well, that felt good. So if something really felt good, then it doesn't count. There weren't enough blood, sweat, and tears involved. But what if the good things that come easily are your soul's breadcrumbs? Follow those, guys. Your life doesn't have to be one long uphill climb. Flow is available to you right now. Not once you've earned it, but simply because you've chosen to align with it. Start listening to your body and start trusting your inner signals and move toward what feels expansive and life-giving. That is where your power is. Now, so many of us wait until the breakdown before we allow the breakthrough. But what if we didn't need to bottom out to recalibrate? What if we started listening to the whispers, the little tiny nudges, the intuitive flinches, the quiet knowing that says, this isn't working. This doesn't feel good. This doesn't fit anymore. This segment is your loving reminder that you're allowed to pivot, pause, or completely reroute before life knocks you sideways. The whispers are your soul's language. Let's learn to listen. Tiny tension is often a sign. Don't dismiss it. You know that subtle moment when you sigh before opening your email? Or the way your energy dips after hanging out with somebody? Those aren't nothing. Those are whispers. Start treating them like data. Your discomfort is information, not something to override. And the longer we ignore, the louder it gets. What starts as restlessness can turn into resentment. And what starts as fatigue can lead to full on burnout. And life is generous with redirection, but the nudges get louder when we stop listening. So tuning into the whisper lets us course correct while we still have the energy and the joy and the options, quite frankly. So we listen, and your body speaks first and your mind catches up later. Somatic wisdom is real, guys. Your gut, your breath, your posture, they often know something is off before your brain does. So learn to trust these signals. They're your early warning system. And they're incredibly wise when we slow down enough to hear them. You don't have to justify your discomfort. Sometimes we wait until it is bad enough to leave the job or change the plan or end the habit or say no. But what if just not liking something is enough? I mean, why do we have to wait till it gets bad enough to leave? I mean, it's bad enough. It's not bad enough yet. It's bad enough. What if you just don't like it and that's enough? You are allowed to pivot simply because your soul desires peace or better alignment. And that's enough, and you're enough. Catching the whisper means that you get to shift with grace instead of crisis. And I feel like that's important because one of the most loving things that you can do for your future self is to take action while things are still quiet. So don't wait for the tower to fall. You're allowed to step off the path that no longer feels like home before it burns you out. And the universe is always in communication with us. And the question is, are we present enough to listen before it gets loud? And when you honor the whispers, you rewrite your relationship with self-trust. And you become someone who doesn't wait to be broken down to change. You evolve by choice, not by emergency. And, that's a powerful place to live by. or from. It's a powerful place to live from, which I would say leads me to the next point I wanted to make, which is creating a life that regulates you, not one you need to escape from. And I would say that this next piece we're about to talk about is really close to my heart, because I know what it's like to build a life that looks good but doesn't feel good, and a life that constantly needs a vacation or a glass of wine or a weekend away just to survive. But what if the goal was no longer to escape your life, but to live inside of something that naturally soothes your system, that energizes you and inspires you and holds you in return? So let's talk about designing a lifestyle that regulates you, like emotionally, mentally, spiritually, and in a ways that you can actually enjoy being in your own life. So regulated doesn't mean perfect. It means safe. And it's not about having zero stress, because that's not possible, right? It's about building a foundation where your nervous system doesn't feel constantly hijacked, where you can breathe and soften and return to yourself even when things get hard. And that's what we're after, is inner safety. And stress happens because life happens. When you have the tools in place and a lifestyle in place that supports a regulated nervous system and everything else, then your ability to handle and cope and move through and clear and process and everything, it's so different. You're so much more empowered. And your environment matters more than you think, because sometimes the clutter, the chaos, the unspoken tension in your space is what's actually draining you, not your lack of discipline or motivation. Your home, your schedule, your digital space, these things shape your nervous system. Curate them like your peace depends on it, because it does. And I use the word curate very intentionally, because this really, it is about curating your life. And joy should be a part of your structure, not a reward that you earn. A lot of us were taught that joy comes after hard work, but joy is not the cherry on top. It is the sole fuel that helps you sustain the work. So design rituals and routines and rhythms that include joy as a built-in element, not as an afterthought. A built-in element, guys. And another thing that reminds me of simplicity is a nervous system hack. Overcomplicating things is often a trauma response in disguise. Simplicity calms the body, and it creates breathing room. And whether it's your calendar or your morning routine or how many tabs are open in your brain, less is often more when it comes to feeling grounded. So when you're designing your life, design it like you love yourself. That might sound like the most no-brainer thing I could ever say, but there's a lot of us who aren't doing it. So design your life like you love yourself. And the ultimate question to ask, if I loved myself deeply, what would I allow? And what would I change? And what would I remove? And asking those questions, it's not indulgent, it's intelligent. And a self-honoring life is one that gives more than it takes. You deserve to live in a space that feels good to be in. And you deserve a schedule that honors your energy and a life that restores you instead of draining you. And this isn't about escaping hard things. It's about building systems and habits and containers that support the real you. You get to feel safe, seen, and supported, not just sometimes, but always. So here is your gentle nudge and powerful reminder. What if it gets to be easier than you've been taught? What if alignment, ease, and flow are not distant ideals, but your birthright frequencies? This episode is your permission slip to soften into your life, not as a way to do less, but as a way to live more. More peace, more clarity, more joy. You don't have to earn that ease. You simply have to allow it. And if this landed for you, I would love to hear from you. Share it with a friend. Save it for those high-strung days. And if you haven't, y'all, this is a quick one, 30 minutes, and I did this intentionally for this reason. Save it for those high-strung days. And if you haven't yet, please consider leaving a rating and review. It helps this message reach more hearts that need it. And I certainly appreciate it. Until next time, dream it and keep real lifing it. I love you guys. Thank you for tuning in to Dreamed It, Then Real Lifed It. I hope today's episode sparked something powerful within you. Remember, every step you take towards your vision counts, no matter how small. If you enjoyed today's conversation, please take a second to hit that subscribe button or leave a review. That would be amazing. Or share the podcast with someone who's ready to bring their dreams into reality too. And if you're looking to dive deeper, connect with me on social media at Dreamed It, Then Real Lifed It, or at BE_what you want. Or visit dreameditthenreallifedit.us for more resources on aligning your life, business, and dreams. Until next time, keep dreaming and keep manifesting your dreams into real life. Love you, friends.